Episode 3 of Ahsoka is definitely on the drier side in regards to its storytelling. It does an okay job of moving the story where it needs to go, but it doesn't necessarily break new ground in its idea of world building or character development. But surprisingly, that's fine, because this episode from a visual perspective and an action perspective is phenomenal. Its central purpose is to be a highly entertaining, Clone Wars-inspired action spectacle, and on that front, it does a fantastic job. It had me grinning from ear to ear almost throughout the whole thing, and I loved it. Now there will be spoilers ahead, so you have been warned. This episode starts with Ahsoka and Sabine on her starship, and they are essentially getting back to where they were with each other in regards to training. This whole sequence is a clear homage to episode 4, where Ahsoka is trying to teach Sabine how to use her instincts rather than her emotions in a fight. She then puts a helmet on Sabine's head with a visor and essentially starts hitting her with a stick, hoping that Sabine will learn to react using her instincts rather than her eyes. And for me, this was the only real section of the episode that really followed on from last week in terms of tone and pacing. Last week's episode was all about slower paced moments. It was about elongated shots and having less cuts, and unfortunately at times, similarly to last week, it felt a little bit too drawn out. There were moments in this training sequence where Sabine was just kind of hovering and swinging her stick for too long, but with that said, there was some important character moments. Again, Ahsoka is reinforcing to Sabine that it is not her connection to the Force that made her want to train her. And while Huang is right in the sense that she doesn't have the natural talent of a Jedi, her spirit is what makes her so endearing and such a strong character. There was also this small moment where Ahsoka uses the Force to pull a cup towards her, and when the training is over, Sabine takes the time to try and do the same thing. I enjoyed this considerably, and I thought the actress playing Sabine did a wonderful job, really relaying that frustration, while also trying to take on board the message of Ahsoka in that she needs to embrace her instincts and her emotions in a healthier way. The next sequence of the episode is with Hera, who is discussing with the New Republic the threat of Thrawn, and she is asking for some resources to investigate the whole situation. And although Mon Mothma is clearly sympathetic to Hera, the rest of them are extremely resistant. They really try to put Hera down and make her feel irresponsible and that Thrawn is dead and Ezra is dead and that she should stop chasing this silly idea. To which Hera claps back in a fantastic way that I really enjoyed, where she says, "None of you have been on the front lines, none of you actually faced war head on, and funnily enough, many of you are simply waiting to see who wins. You don't have any loyalty." And although it was small, I really did again enjoy this dichotomy between a general, a fighter who was involved firsthand in the war, versus the more politically involved people of the Galactic Civil War. It's once again showcasing the frailty of the New Republic. It's showcasing the arrogance and the dogma of this new regime that we all know fails, and I think they're doing that pretty well across all of Star Wars media, to be fair. We also got our first glimpse of Jason Sandula in live action, and I have to say his transition from cartoon to live action is a good one. We then jump back to Ahsoka and Sabine, and this is where the real meat of the episode is, and this is where it starts to get really good. There's a small moment between Huang and Ahsoka where they're talking about what it means to be a Jedi. And once again, Huang says Sabine is not a good fit. However, Ahsoka reinforces that she's not trying to make Sabine a Jedi in the traditional sense. To which Huang agrees and says, "You know, that's kinda true, your whole line has been rather unorthodox," alluding to Anakin, Qui-Gon, and Ahsoka herself. I really enjoyed this small interaction. Sabine then walks in and Hera reveals via holocall that she won't be arriving with reinforcements because the New Republic denied her, and they lose communications and jump out of hyperspace. They're immediately attacked by Marok and Shin, who are flying these extremely intriguing looking starships. They are very evidently designed to look like World War II fighter planes, not only stylistically, but the way their engines sound and the way their blaster bolts sound too. Initially I wasn't overly keen on this, but it did really grow on me over the course of the episode, because the dogfighting in this entire sequence is phenomenal. The usage of camera angles, just some of the cinematography and the shots are absolutely exquisite, and for me it goes down as probably one of, or if not the best space battle I've ever seen in Star Wars. It is fast-paced, it is action-packed, and it is shot so brilliantly that it just draws you in. There's also an important character interaction between Ahsoka and Sabine during the whole fight, where Ahsoka has to kind of let go and essentially trust Sabine, and the two of them begin to really synergize and work together in fighting off these attackers. This whole sequence was highly reminiscent of just an action-packed episode of the Clone Wars or Rebels, and they did a fantastic job of bringing that energy and that high-octane feel into the fight. As they're trying to evade Shin and Marok, Ahsoka is trying to get closer to the Eye of Sion so that Huang can scan it and identify what this ship is supposed to be. However, a critical system is hit just as they get towards it, which completely shuts the ship down and kind of leaves them stranded. Shin then leads a strafing run to blow them up, so while Sabine is working to get the ship back online, Ahsoka gets in a spacesuit and gets on the hull of the ship outside and does everything she can to deflect the lasers from the attackers. Also, we hear Marok speak for the first time, and he is purposely given a synthesizer so we can't tell who he is. A part of me thinks this character is going to have some importance moving forwards because they are really hiding his identity. Now, there were moments in this sequence that looked a tiny bit iffy visually, but I just found it to be highly entertaining, and again, very reminiscent of the Clone Wars. This is the exact sort of dumb but entertaining rubbish you would have seen in that show, and they just made it work. And yeah, of course, there had to be that moment where Ahsoka jumps into the vacuum of space, spins around and cuts one of the ship's wings off. It was just a lot of fun to watch. It looked good 99% of the time, and it just felt like pure, unadulterated Star Wars, which I loved. Anyway, Sabine manages to get the ship back online, and Huang boots up and reveals he completed the scan, and Ahsoka gets back in and they fly the ship into the atmosphere of the planet. While they're having this dogfight in the sky, we get to see live-action Purrgil in their true beauty, and wow, did they look incredible in this show. The visual effects were incredible, and they're kind of using the Purrgil's tentacles to smokescreen their descent to the surface. And again, I just thought this whole sequence was visually brilliant. It was action-packed, it was entertaining, and just wonderful to watch. And huge credits have to go to the VFX teams because the step up from The Mandalorian and Kenobi to this is insane. They then land the ship in the forest to hide, and Sabine and Ahsoka have a quick discussion to admire the Purrgil that they just saw. And this kind of gives them the reinforcement that they're on the right track, because Sabine mentions the last time she ever saw Ezra was the last time she saw Purrgil. We then have a quick shot of Baylan looking all menacing but regal at the same time, waiting and preparing for Ahsoka to arrive because he can sense her presence in the forest. And then the episode ends. Now, this may be a controversial opinion, but I'm going to be frank with all of you. This was actually one of my favourite episodes of Star Wars TV ever, simply because of how entertaining it was and how much it embodied George Lucas's Star Wars. This dogfight was one of the most entertaining dogfights I've ever watched in a piece of Star Wars media, and for me, they got it right in almost every single way. From the way it was shot, the visual effects, the audio, and once again the music. My god, the music in this show is incredible. It all just seamlessly worked to create something that was pure spectacle and pure Star Wars entertainment. And truthfully, it was a nice change of pace from last week's slower episodes, but I'm looking forward to them going back to that more slow-paced storytelling so that we can really move this plot forward. And because of the spectacle, and because it was specifically designed not to be narrative-heavy, the shorter runtime didn't actually bother me too much. However, I'm hoping that the runtimes do increase over the next couple of weeks. And I actually cannot wait to see next week's episode, and I am genuinely excited to see where this story goes, because the mystery is there, the foundation is there, and I really do believe this show could be something special if it doesn't drop off in regards to the core values and the core fundamentals that have defined the quality of this show so far. It has been very consistent on every single level, which, safe to say, has not been the same for pretty much every other Star Wars show besides Andor. With that said though, if you enjoyed the review, please do hit the like button, it helps me out a great deal. And if you haven't, perhaps consider subscribing so you're notified when next week's review of Ahsoka goes live. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.